Hi, Helena.
Hi, Adam.
And hi to all of our listeners out there. You may have to forgive us today. We're a little bit tired, Helena. We've had a weekend full of performances at very different ends of the artistic scale. Helena, do you want to tell us about your weekend?
Yeah, I've been over in Scotland for a few weeks with Scottish Opera. They put on these wonderful composer collaborations every year. Last year it was Puccini and this year it was Strauss. So it was a highlights concert of Ariadne and Arabella and De Rosenkavalier. So, singing all three leading lady parts in one show and all the big highlights. And we did a concert in Glasgow at the Royal Concert Hall there. And then we did one in Edinburgh at Usher Hall. It was lovely, actually. I haven't sung for Scottish Opera in many, many years. So it's really lovely to be back, but really exhausting because when you think about it, I'm also singing in that concert. I'm singing more than I would sing in a regular opera, because it's all the big bits of everything. So you don't have any of the little ensemble-y, chorusy bits to rest in. So not much rest for La Dix, I should say. I'm feeling a little weary today. But what about you? I think you did something very similar, right?
Let's call it similar. I was singing on the back of a semi-trailer in Rochester in Victoria, Australia, which was phenomenal fun. We had just the best time. It was opera highlights and musical theatre highlights for the Shire of Campaspe and the Rotary Club there, and it was genuinely so much fun. I can't express what a great time we had.
Bringing opera to the people, I love it.
Anyway, we like to kick off our episodes with a little introduction about ourselves. Helena, take it away.
My name is Helena Dix. I'm an opera singer and I've been kicking it around the globe and around many operatic stages for quite a few years now. I love to travel, both in the air and on the ground. I'm a dog lover, a foodie, and I love to laugh.
And my name is Adam Miller. I'm a former opera singer turned producer, writer and director. And you and I have had the great pleasure of working together over the years in lots of different capacities. So, what's today's episode about, Helena?
Oh, it's a great one. It's food, glorious food. Glad I warmed up for that. And it's talking about all the outrageous and wonderful and memorable food items that both of us have tried on our travels.
And not to give any spoilers for this episode, but if you happen to like deep-fried Mars bars or deep-fried Oreos, listen on. And here we are back again. Now, in our last episode, we discussed travel hacks and all those very exciting tips and tricks about how best to travel around the world. But do you know what we didn't get to, Helena? We didn't get to food.
Food, glorious food.
It's been so many episodes. We've been talking about getting to the food episode, and I'm committing to it now. Let's do it. Let's go for the food episode.
I feel like I should have my cutlery in my hand, because that's my branding now, because so many people, after listening to episode 1, have judged me so greatly for eating pizza with a knife and fork. I'm literally...
Pizza with a knife and fork. Oh,
why does everyone have to stop on that point and give me that feedback that they can't be friends with me anymore?
It's how you know the audience is engaged. You have dragged them into rage bait.
Right. So now that we're talking about food, I'm going to have my cutlery in my hand and my bib, my serviette tucked in my top, and away we go.
Let's start with pizza. Let's get that one out of the way because we know you've got your knife and fork ready. Best pizza you've had?
Oh, I'm actually quite genuinely not the best person to ask about pizza because it's not a great love of mine. I enjoy a good slice of pizza, but I'm not a pizza lover, like a great pizza lover. So what about you? Do you have a really strong opinion?
Yeah, I have a pizza that keeps me awake at night sometimes, remembering how good it was. When I used to live in Milan, there was a pizza restaurant that was known for all the locals around up in the north of Milan. And all they sold was margherita pizza, lasagna, and that was it. That literally no other food could you purchase from that place. And the pizza was phenomenal. I don't know if it's still there, but I really hope it is. It deserves to live on. It was phenomenal. And it was always packed. And it had like the proper Roma tomatoes. It had buffalo mozzarella, and an anchovy at the very center was the only thing that really salted it. And so like the salt from the anchovy was the only thing that gave it that real lift of flavor all the way through. And then it had basil on it as well, fresh basil. Phenomenal pizza. Absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, it keeps me awake at night every once in a while when I'm thinking, oh, do I feel like pizza? I'm like, there'll never be a pizza as good as Spontini in Milan.
In regards to the pizza, I also think it's like the fresh ingredients, like a fresh mozzarella on a pizza is just phenomenal. I know mozzarella doesn't particularly taste of a hell of a lot. It's not a strong thing, but on a pizza, the subtleness of a really kind of milky, fresh kind of ball of mozzarella that's like in New York, they have something called Italy. And it's,
yes. Yeah, I've heard about this.
So if we're kicking off talking about great food, Italy, which is obviously a little play on Italy, Little Italy in New York is just phenomenal. It's a market / kind of some restaurants and things, and they have all fresh Italian produce, everything from pizza to, restaurants with pasta and the whole Parmigiano. And I've had a full-on argument being an Australian with a New York friend of mine she's Italian New Yorker. And so she's got this kind of passion about Italian food. But on the flip side, I told her that a Parmigiana has to have ham on it. And she told me that that's disgraceful and that traditionally it's only the tomato and the cheese. And we've had huge arguments about this. And so chicken parm is obviously a big thing in New York, but especially in the Italian specialty places, they do these chicken parms. And of course, none of them have ham. And I'm like, but it has to, it's part of the rule. She's like, you Australians have bastardized the recipe. So, that's funny. But Italy, I decided to get a spread of Italy products delivered to my flat in New York as a celebration for going on in Norma, when I went on in Norma twice. And I got a couple of my friends around and we got this banquet of Italy products. And the prices are just so stupid, it really is ridiculous. But I have to say you get what you paid for. And we had fresh balls of mozzarella. We had risotto balls, deep fried risotto balls. We had, all the meats and the olives and the everything. And it was extraordinary. But I have to tell you something. This is a confession. I've never told anyone this.
Is it that you eat pizza with a knife and fork? Because you gave that one up in episode 1.
All right. You don't need to bring so much sass, okay?
I'm never letting that go.
Calm it down with this. Can I just tell our listeners, by the way, that when we recorded that episode and you gave me so much stick over the fact that I ate pizza with a knife and fork, a couple of days later, Adam and I did some more recording at his house. And we sat down, and I don't pay much attention to what's going on sometimes in right around me. And I could see Adam kind of slightly smiling, and we sat down to record, and Adam said, "Oh, Helena, I've got some snacks for you." And he put some stuff out on the table, and I was like, "Okay." And we went to start recording, and he was almost giggling, and I'm thinking, what's he smiling at? And I looked down, and he's like, "Here's a cookie." And next to the cookie, he'd put a knife and fork. Didn't you? Smart ass.
I couldn't resist.
I obviously do not eat cookies with a knife and fork. That is just ridiculous. Anyway, I just had to get that out. But my confession is, so talking about travel and talking about food is hugely related for me. I come from a family. My mum used to own restaurants in Chapel Street, and my mum is a home economist. She's a trained chef, so food is a big part of my life, which you can probably tell from looking at me, to be fair. But also, I just really appreciate trying new things. And I'm a really brave food trier, I guess, whereas my husband's not at all. It has to be number 23 on the Chinese takeaway list or I'm dead to him. That's just it. If I change things up. So it's really odd that I married someone who's quite the opposite to me. We were just chatting about that last night. But my confession is this. So when I get a contract, I'm obviously incredibly excited to go and work somewhere, and especially somewhere new, like a country I've never been in or a place I've never been to. The first thing I do is obviously learn my music. But when I'm about a month out from traveling to any city I've never traveled before, is I do my food preparation. And my food preparation involves going online and looking at blogs of foodies or Instagram tags of foodies in hashtag, wherever Berlin foodies, whatever. And I literally do research for hours and hours and hours on the best food places to visit while I'm there.
Oh, I know this about you because you send me so many of those clips. And I'm the same. I've started doing it myself. I send them back to you and go, next time you're back, we're going here. So many good places that are on our list now.
Exactly. And I think, as a singer, when you're traveling, sometimes it can be quite lonely. And I think as an international international singer, one of the things that's really interesting is that sometimes you go into a place and it's all local singers. And so when you go into a contract where you're the only foreigner coming into the contract, it can sometimes be quite hard, and they don't mean to be like it. But of course, everyone's got their families and their friends, and they've already got life set up. And if you're the only one that's coming from outside, sometimes it can be quite difficult because they'll go off and just do their regular stuff and won't think all the time that, gosh, Helena's, new here and she doesn't know anyone. Or sometimes they're fantastic, I have to say. But in general, if you're the only one, so you've got to be able to amuse yourself. And I've got a friend who says, how do you do it? I would never sit in a restaurant on my own. And I think that's a really interesting thing too. Like, would you, I ask our listeners as well, would you go happily and sit on your own? And I think if you're part of, a traveling job like we are, yeah, you definitely do that. You quite happily do that. But I know a lot of people would find that really strange to actually go and sit in a restaurant on their own. What about you? Do you do that?
Oh, I definitely do that. I love doing that. It was one of my joys as well, traveling around the world. For me, it was traveling around and trying different restaurants. When I was traveling around Scotland, I found myself going to local pubs and bars and trying all the local whiskies, because so many places around Scotland have got their own very distinct preferences for whiskies. And it was a great way to meet locals and chat to people. It was always a good starting conversation, especially in Scotland, where they take that so seriously. So it was a great way to kind of say, hey, what's local? What do you recommend? I love doing that.
I always, I started when I went to, it was San Francisco. No, I lie. It was Seattle. My very first time in Seattle, when I sang in the finals of the Wagner competition, I was the only international person to be there. And it was a bit of a negative experience for me in the sense of some of my colleagues were not very nice to me at the time. And, I was the non-American.
Was it because of the knife and fork pizza thing?
I didn't even know that. If it hadn't been that, they would have judged me so badly. No, it was just being a part of a competition with American colleagues is actually quite a difficult thing, I've got to say. It's the next level of competitiveness.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to get away. And what I realized is that their famous market, which is the Pike market there, they did a food tour. And it's now something that I look up every city I go. And it's more popular now, these kind of walking tours, these walking food tours. And they're really popular in the States. But I've also found them in smaller cities when I've traveled around. And when I went to this, it was just phenomenal. And what it did, you go through the market on foot with a whole group of people, and the tour guide talks about local produce and what's great and what's not. And they give you just little bits of food from all these different stalls, which is awesome because then you can try all the local cuisine highlights without having to commit to buying anything in bulk or to, having
And you
to
get the
eat
recommendations as well.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I remember they had a chowder, like a clam chowder, that was particularly popular there. Oh, it was to die for. And also like local sodas. So like American old school sodas, like cream soda and thing. And they had they had an old school soda shop which sat on the outside of Pike Market, and you were able to like sample like some of the old school like root beers and cream sodas and things that aren't so commercialized, but these like really old school brands. And I loved it. So I went in and bought, I remember that they had one that was like a chocolate flavored cream soda. There was
thank you.
Corn bacon flavored.
Oh, see, soda. I love bacon, but I don't know.
Yeah, but it's America. America does the whole,
Did you have
America
it though?
does the whole sweet. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, so give us the review. What is it? I want to hear the advertisement. I want to hear Helena Dix advertise bacon soda.
When you pop it open, the first thing you taste is the bubbles. And then it's the creamy, refreshing taste of that old school cream soda. But wait, what's that I can taste on my palate? It's a little bit of saltiness. Is it bacon? Have I just poured the salt shaker in there too much? I'm not sure. No, don't ask me to do anything apart from sing.
I was going to offer you the job. You could have been the head of marketing right there.
It's a good day with bacon soda. But no, there is something quite sexy about the difference between this kind of like soft, sugary, mellow kind of soda, and then a little crispness with the you wouldn't drink it and go bacon, like you would drink it.
That's the advertisement right there. Glug glug glug. Bacon.
Oh God! I also remember on that trip, because it was bacon flavored stuff was quite a trend in the US. I mean, it is now anyway.
You sent me some bacon. Was it bacon mayonnaise? Baconaise you sent me.
And also
yes.
they had popcorn with bacon flavor in it too. Oh, I literally bought everything because it was a new trend at the time. And I was like, well, I love bacon and I love popcorn. So
what could go wrong?
I remember coming back to Australia with a case full of like bacon-infused products for everybody because I was so excited. And the bacon popcorn was horrendous. It was so bad. I'm surprised they didn't do bacon flavored. You know, the Americans do that, what's called fluff, which is basically spreadable marshmallow.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't. They probably haven't. No, I'm probably like ahead of the market. They've probably done something now, but yeah, at that time it was really, really, really popular. And also, I think the other thing is that finding these great places also brings you closer to colleagues who are of equal mind, like colleagues that really love food, or there's something lovely about bringing people together over a nice meal. And I don't mean the entire cast going out and getting drunk, or like just going somewhere and having a meal together, but I mean people who are like-minded. So, for instance, when I was in San Francisco doing Roberto Devera with Jamie Barton, we got chatting about food, and I said to her, oh, I've looked up this place and this place. She's like, oh yeah. She's like, you have to try. There's this they're famous in San Francisco for this Asian place that does crab and garlic noodles is their thing, which is the most bizarre thing ever, because you think about it in a concept and you go, great, it's garlic and noodles. Like what can be great about that? But it is sexy, I'm here to tell you. So like I judged her greatly when she told me this. She's like, no, you're going to think I've got no taste. She's like, okay, we have to get a takeaway first. So we got a takeaway first, this kind of garlic noodle, just literally nothing much else to the dish. You would have it as an accompaniment. You wouldn't, of course, like just, have it. But there was something going on with the whatever. It wasn't just garlic and noodle. There was something sexy going on. And then she's like, right, and now you need to have it with crab. And so we went to this infamous, crab restaurant, and it was so great. And they gave you like the whole American bib, like the bib style thing, like because of the crab. And we have this Asian infused kind of crab and noodle, which was like almost like an egg noodle kind of thing. And I would never have found that because I wouldn't be looking for that. I'd be looking for more, typical American-y cuisine things to try, because that's what I do when I'm looking on foodie blogs. I'm like, what's local? What do the locals eat? What do they rave about?
I'm traumatized by crab generally. When I was producing a show over in Singapore, and some of the local promoters took me out to dinner at this big, fancy, fantastic place. And of course, Singapore is famous for chili crab. And they brought out these big, beautiful crabs, and it was all cool and messy, and they give you the bib, same as you were just describing, and the hammer, the whole deal. But I wasn't good at it. I was bad at it. And so they're just breaking into it and eating away. And I was unable to open up my crab or do anything to get any food out of it. And so at one point, a waitress came over and said, oh, would you like me to take that away and prepare that for you? We can get the meat out for you. I'm like, oh, that'd be really helpful. Thanks for that. And they took the crab away and brought it back. And we went through that. I ate my crab and it was delicious. And we went away. And I was chatting to some other locals about it the next day. And I'm like, oh, and it was so good, because then they just took it away because they couldn't do the thing. And I'm like, that's what they do for children. No adult does that. No self-respecting man would do this.
That's
and you
hilarious.
were out with like business colleagues and you went, yes, please cut up my food for me. It was horrendous. I was mortified when I discovered that.
Oh, I can see that happening. Actually, not with you, but I can see that happening in general. I'm a little bit like that with lobster when I eat lobster, and so my husband and I, every Christmas we get a lobster for dinner because it's the Australian kind of treat that I had occasionally growing up in Australia, because it's obviously summer, but here it's not. But we get this lobster delivered, and I'm always like, with the claws and everything. I and again, it goes back to the cutlery thing. I really struggle. So with the crab, I actually did struggle to do the same thing. So she was like digging in and like butter everywhere and crab everywhere. And I hear you because I actually struggled not to kind of do it per se, but to eat it with my hands. I was like, oh no. So I'd have to break up something and then like wash my hands and then do it with the cutlery, like then eat it with the cutlery, which, it took a long time, but that's probably quite good for me actually. So good not to have to eat it. But then by the end, it took me like an hour to eat like probably not very much crab meat. And then I was hungry again at the end. So that's probably counterproductive really. But we certainly bonded over that. And that was really lovely for us. And we also bonded over the fact that in San Francisco, very hipster-led, hipster-centric with their food and coffees and all that. I know you're a coffee lover. I'm not particularly, but at that stage, the latest thing was serving lattes in avocado shells.
Oh my God. Okay, right. As much as I'm a coffee lover, that doesn't feel like a coffee lover thing. That feels like the most pretentious way. Yeah.
No, it's not, but it's just such a hipstery thing. So getting back to the point of what we were talking about, I study foodie blogs. I make a list in order of things that I'd like to go and try. I usually go to a market or a food tour to start with, and then that gives me like a kind of a map, if you like, of what I'd like to then go back for and have more. And in New York, because I've been to New York, sung in New York so many times, I've done several of their food walking tours, and they're just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And actually, my friends who are local love it because they're like, oh, Helena, we find out more about our city going with you on a food walking tour, and then we can all go back to, to places. And I remember we were doing one in New York and they had, I scoffed at it. Okay, so let's talk about this. In America, obviously they do everything bigger and better, and it's all very over the top food wise, So we got to this, it's like an old school dairy shop, and they bring out a tray of deep fried Oreos.
I'm here for that. Yes.
Now, okay, but you're here for that, but a lot of people go, ugh. And I happen to be one of them. I was like, what? That's disgusting. Like, okay, I love Oreos and I love fried stuff, but this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And so I turned my nose up. I was like, this is over the top. This is ridiculous. Anyway, they bring out this platter and it's really delicately fried. So they got the Oreo, they got this really crispy, gorgeous batter, like it wasn't oily at all. And then they had this huge clump of, it was almost like a clotted cream on the side because they were a dairy shop. And so they're handing them out to everyone. It was life-changing. Like time stood still. Like it was so good, and I felt so embarrassed that I had like turned my nose up. But before I could even, because I'd be like, ugh, I'd turn around to my American friends. I was like, you guys, America deep fried Oreos, like, when's it all going to end? And as I kind of jokingly said that, I hadn't bitten into it. And then my friend, he'd literally the look on his face, he'd eaten it, and he was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I'm like still laughing, thinking this is ridiculous. And I go to take a bite. And as I go to take a bite, the woman goes, oh, we've got a couple of left over. He's like, yep. and he takes it. And I regret it. I've regretted it every day since I experienced the fact that I didn't get a second one. And when we tried to go back years later, they didn't, I think the shop was still there, but they didn't do the deep fried Oreo anymore, or I don't know.
Oh no, you can never go back.
I mean, it's different to getting like in Glasgow, going back to Glasgow. Of course, in Scotland, they do deep fried everything, don't
deep
they?
fried Mars
Including
bars.
pizza.
Well, no, deep fried Mars bar was my thing. So I had the exact opposite experience to you, enjoying the deep fried Oreo, because I'd sought one out. I'm like, I know this thing is probably just an urban myth, but I'm going to go find one. I really must have a deep fried Mars bar when I'm in Glasgow. So my first contract at Scottish Opera, I went and I sought out a deep fried Mars bar. And what's hilarious is the fish and chip shop right next to the Scottish Opera rehearsal space has deep fried Mars bars. So it wasn't even a very difficult adventure for me to find that. But I was so excited. I'm like, this is great. I'm going to get myself a deep fried Mars bar. And I bought the deep fried Mars bar and I took it outside and it was cold. And I'm like, yeah, and it's all hot and I'm going to love this. Took one bite and went, oh, I think I'm going to die. This is literally going to kill me. It was so sweet and so greasy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's too much. And that's a lot coming from me because I am a man of excesses.
Yeah.
And I had to abandon that one, sadly. I don't think I actually made it through the entire deep fried Mars bar.
What's really interesting is that we all have such different tastes in food. And I guess a part of it is how we've grown up. A part of it is, how much we've traveled or eaten around the world or things like this. But in a way, I kind of relate it to tastes on singing. So many people think that one singer is the best, and then someone else will be like, no, like I love this singer. Why do you love it? Oh, their voice is. It's kind of like food, isn't it? In some ways, you all appreciate it. You all appreciate it when it's good, but tastes are so variable, and it just really depends on what you can do and what you like. When I was in Tunisia, so I did a gig in Tunisia, which was so random, but I did this fantastic gig in Tunisia, and the family of the hosts brought me to their place, and we had it's like a lot of Moroccan food and things like that. Again, it's stuff that I'd never tried before. When I've been traveling in Oldenburg or Nuremberg or, different places in Germany, they all have their different kind of things as well. And I've been known to go to a pub in the middle of nowhere, like literally like take a bus somewhere and walk for 20 minutes to get to this little pub, old school German kind of beer house pub, where there's these old men sitting in there, who've maybe been in there for 10 years already, just sitting there drinking their large pints of German brew. And I come in and I'm like, I want this meat dish. And I look it up in something with potatoes and meat and off the bone. And again, like I'm literally in the middle of nowhere in the winter, but the meat that came off the bone and the potatoes and everything, and they just kind of slap it down on the table. There's no frills, And it's funny what you'll do to have experiences like that. And I just find it fantastic. And that's my thing that, I'm not a huge tourist. I'm not someone that's going to go to museums and monuments because I find that with my opera work, my head is already quite full and I find I need to just switch off and relax. And someone said to me, when I did the Norma, when I jumped on for the Norma twice, for the second one, it was like a live broadcast internationally, and it was a big deal, and I got off the stage and I didn't have anyone there, no friends, no family. Obviously people had been listening in around the world, but I was like, okay, I signed some autographs at the stage door and I thought, I've got to do something to celebrate, like this is ridiculous. And everyone who I speak to about it was like, what did you do? Did you go out to the best place and have caviar and champagne and treat yourself like a true diva? Like, the whole thing. I said, do you want the honest truth? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, well, I walked home in the rain because my house was about 15 blocks away, 20 blocks away from the Met. It was pouring with rain. I walked home, literally cried my eyes out all the way, got inside. I ordered the filthiest pizza, talking about pizzas, but it wasn't like a pizza that I've always wanted to try. It was the dirtiest, salami, extra mozzarella, just a dirty New York pizza. And I had that and some garlic bread and a can of Coke.
Wait, with a knife and fork?
With a knife and fork in my pajamas.
With a knife and fork.
Yep. That's it. And that was the glamorous life of the diva. So there are just so many treasures. And you had that place in Glasgow, didn't you, that you love to go to?
Oh, it was
brunch.
Life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. So it was just off Byers Road near the Botanic Gardens. And they did an Eggs Benedict, but it came in a bowl. It was swimming in the hollandaise sauce, and then they baked it in the oven. Honestly, yeah, it's probably taken years off my life. Like I probably am still carrying the cholesterol from those eggs right now. But gee, it was worth it. Just phenomenal. They make me so happy.
I think the thing is, when you've had a croissant in Paris, or when you've had, a great meal somewhere and you use that as a leveler, it's like, well, if I'm going to indulge in naughty foods, I want to do it at the best places. I want to experience it at the best places.
That's so for me, that was barbecue in Texas. So I was producing a tour of some events around the States, and we're in Texas for a fair while. And I thought that I knew, as an Australian, what real barbecue was. And I was talking to some of the local crew about barbecue and how we like to barbecue in Australia. And they're like, no, you don't. You don't know barbecue until you've done Texas barbecue. And they took me out to a number of different barbecue places around Austin. Life-changing. It made me obsessed with the American way of barbecuing, which to us is smoking mostly. So you smoke the meat, but you make briskets and burnt ends and all these things. And we talk about life-changing. I have a smoker here now. I have become obsessed with it. It's one of my hobbies. Because it taps into that nerdy side of me. There is. It's an art, but also a science. It's that beautiful world in between where you get to know what that thing's going to do, and you're going to get it to 94 degrees, so it starts to break down all the meat and make it really fall apart. But then you just know, oh look, I can feel it with this meat. I'm going to take it off a little earlier, or you leave it a little longer. Yeah, absolutely obsessed with doing that. Oh, smoking a good piece of meat, the best thing in the world. Yeah, that came from travel. That came from that time in Texas. And then I got interested in the different places. So when we were touring around to these venues, we'd have different barbecue in Phoenix, or different barbecue in all the different places in the States, especially down south, all have a different way of barbecuing and a different thing that they lean on to say, this is the real way to barbecue. And I've made that one of my life's hobbies to master that, which I never will, because it's something that you spend a lifetime mastering. But God, I love it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's the difference between someone who's literally like dedicates their time and energy to that craft, and then you truly, truly appreciate it. And also, I find it really interesting. Like as someone who travels, I go to New York. What are you expecting? So, as a food person, are you expecting just to eat kind of inverted commas American style food? Well, no. You look at New York and you go, there's a lot of Jewish people, for instance. So the Jewish food is like insanely good in New York. And also they're kind of Chinatown, like the influence of Asia is really, really strong in New York, whereas it's not so strong, in other places. And so, for instance, in New York, I tried my first ever soup dumpling, which I'd never had before. And it was a huge thing in New York.
So good.
Yeah. But I would, I never would have put soup dumpling with America, but yet, it was prominent there, and this was quite the trend. And I thought, I'm absolutely going to try that. And of course, the pastrami sandwiches and the salted beef sandwiches that you get are just, I almost don't have the words. Almost. I mean, it is just like, you go to Reuben's or whatever, you have a Reuben and it's just meat in bread, and you think, and I like Judge and McJudge face, like I go, it's meat in bread, like how good can that be? And then you taste it, and you're like, oh, this is, I can't ever just have a ham sandwich again and be happy. Like it just doesn't happen, and also sandwiches in the States are a whole different ball game, aren't they? With all these meats and everything. So yeah, it's really fascinating. I think there's this thing of that it brings you and other colleagues together, in the sense of, I love to, when I'm traveling, when I'm traveling and singing, I mainly do actually cook for myself, because I like to keep healthy and, make sure that I'm on top of things. But the treat side to any trip is that kind of like picking a couple of different places and going, I'm actually going to try that at some point. And I make it like a little joyous occasion. So if I've had a really good rehearsal, or a lot of my weeks are 6-day weeks when I'm rehearsing for a show, and you kind of get to Saturday night and you think, gosh, I'm tired. What can I do to treat myself? And you think, I'm going to go to that place, or I'm going to, grab that or do that. And it just becomes just a really joyful part of experiencing a country, I think, for sure.
It's a great way to see it. So all of this chat about food has made me hungry, so I think it's time to wrap it up and go get something to eat. But I can't finish without asking, what is your go-to food from the Borough Market in London?
It would be one of two things. It would be the brownies from Flower Power.
Yes.
I mean, that they're gone now, but in the old days.
I've heard this. Yeah, but they're just around the corner. Is that right?
Yeah, they did set up an actual shop.
Yeah, so you can still find them, because that's what I care about. When I come over later this year, I absolutely cannot miss out on Flower Power brownies from Borough Market.
And I'm not a chocolate brownie person, but yeah, those. And also the olives from the olive stands. So the fresh olives, I used to always collect tubs of those, and
just absolutely gorgeous. How about you?
See, yeah, wouldn't touch olives with a 10-foot pole. Flour power brownies, 100%. I'm on board for that. The other one for me was fudge. So that's the first place I discovered burnt sugar fudge, which is like it's a Scottish tablet almost. It's much more crumbly than an American style fudge, which is a little bit chewy. This is it's crumbly and it melts in your mouth, and it's fantastic. You find it every once in a while. They've clearly expanded, and you can see it around the place in boutique confectionery shops.
You and I spent a lot of time at Borough Market when we were both here together, and it was one of those things that we had to just do once a month or something. Otherwise, we'd have no money left, right? Because you're paying for the quality of what you get. But it was such a gorgeous experience to go to Borough Market on an early Saturday morning and just be engulfed by all the people and all the smells and all the foods. And what a great time!
And the raclettes. Oh, well, yes, they do the raclettes there as well. Oh, yeah. Now I'm definitely hungry. I think it's time to wrap this one up, and I'm going to go find something. I'm going to have to go melt some cheese on something. Right. With that said, I think it is time to go, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.